Hi, this is Dan Proft, and you are listening to the Lake Forest Podcast.
The Lake Forest Podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Broker Michelle Parno has lived and worked in Lake Forest for over 2 decades. Michelle's lending experience, when combined with her real estate expertise, makes her an invaluable asset to her clients as they navigate their home buying or selling process. Call Michelle now at 847-528-8721, 847-528-8721. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. Laracy & Company CPAs, founded in 2010 by Lake Forest's own Brian Laracy, specializes in tax preparation and bookkeeping services. Earning the People Love Us on Yelp award, their process is straightforward. Just upload, review, and file. For a free quote, visit laracycpa.com now. That's LARISEYCPA.com. I'm excited to share with you something special from our Lake Forest community, the Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa, located at 775 North Bank Lane in Lake Forest near Wisconsin Avenue. This just isn't any spa. They offer an amazing blend of traditional spa services, plus the added benefit of medical procedures and treatments. In a relaxing and luxurious spa environment, you can enjoy a range of cosmetic and aesthetic treatments. These are all performed under the supervision of top medical professionals. The Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa provides skin care, facial rejuvenation, body contouring, laser hair removal, Botox, dermal fillers, chemical peels, and much more. What's great is that each treatment is tailored not just to enhance your appearance, but also to address specific skin concerns and to promote overall well-being. So if you're looking to pamper yourself and take your beauty routine to the next level, give the Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa a call at 224-768-8028 or visit them at their location on North Bank Lane. It's an experience your skin will thank you for. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters, Otto, John C., Helen, and Herrick.
Good morning.
Joe Overweiss. In the classic Florida domed-in swimming pool.
There you go. It's a little chilly this morning here in Naples.
Yeah, what is it, in the 60s?
Yeah. Got out the fur coats.
Is it foggy there?
It is foggy. Usually it's foggy in the mornings. Had a lot of rain. It had quite a bit of rain yesterday, so today's going to be a sunny day. You got your thinking cap on?
I have my thinking cap on, and I have my ascot. Of course, it's been Christmas, so you wear the gifts that you get.
But I still represent Lake Forest here. I got the Scouts water bottle.
Well, it's still called the Scouts.
Out of my cold dead hands, Matt Montgomery.
Hi,
Got my Liberty hat.
Hi, this is
Fiesta Bowl.
This is Dan from Elmwood Park. Biden sucks. Go Trump.
He does. Seen the price of stuff? Jeez.
Come on, I thought inflation's getting tamed down. We got
Biden inflation. Oh, please.
We got the
Bidenomics, whatever his slogan is.
End of year rally.
Yeah, it's better than it was when he took a year ago, but it's still not what it was pre-pandemic.
So how was Christmas? What were the hot gifts?
You know, when you're an adult, you don't really get the gifts. You just pay for them.
No, when you're a true adult, as I tell my older kid, their gifts get more crappy and our gifts get better.
Yeah, I just got a few shirts. There he is. Dan the man.
Hi,
Getting all set up.
this is Dan from Elmwood Park. Just want to say Biden sucks. Thank you. Go Trump.
That's other shows on his
Here,
station.
hold on.
Dan has more meat to his shows than that.
He's got his WIND headset in. Doing it in the
AM 560.
560 two, three times.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, there you go.
I don't know why is this okay?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I don't know. I'm not getting the mic when I've got my headphones on. So whatever.
The production quality on this show is never
Yeah, you don't have your production peoples there. Wait, hold on. This is Dave from the north side. Just want to say Biden sucks. Go Trump.
this isn't. Like I said, there's more meat to Dan's shows than that.
I know. We're having fun. We're blowing shit. Oh, that's it. We lost him. That's
He walked away.
Great show. Well, it lasted.
No.
Hold on.
Careful. You don't want to show your background. You don't want people coming up to your door, Dan. Hey,
Yeah.
Dan, thank you for showing up. Appreciate it. What time?
Thanks, Dan.
When do you tee off?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. Okay, we'll be good. Joe Weiss, how do you know Dan Proft? How did we get him on here?
Well, Dan and I have erased this from our LinkedIn profile, but we both worked in the George Ryan administration many years ago.
Yeah. Never convicted, either one of us.
That's right. Or indicted.
Not even indicted. Yeah.
That's right. You didn't even have to testify.
Not any plea deals either.
That's right. So, I mean, Dan I think you started with the Illinois House GOP way back when.
Lee Daniels way back in the day.
Yeah.
Here for that 2-year interregnum when Madigan wasn't speaker until recently. But yeah, after he completed his 40-year run. So yeah, that's how I cut my teeth was Lee Daniels, and then Rosemont, then the state. So then Chicago Heights, then Cicero. So I've done the Iron Triangle of mob towns in addition to
We'll get him into Highwood next.
So if I was a younger father and I had a child that was 5 years old and I want to cookie cut them into a Republican, how would I put them in the right course of action?
Send them to Liberty.
Send your money to Liberty.
I would be pretty precocious. Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I'm not an advocate for trying to cookie cut a kid into being a Republican. Because there's a lot of Republicans are not thinkers either. So I would say, that the thing is just about making kids lifelong learners. And so introduce them to things that, at whatever age you begin, obviously with stuff that's accessible, but introduce them to things that are beautiful and intriguing and important. So,
Critical thinking.
From baby Mozart in the womb to, all the way forward to, maybe by the time of 5 or 6, he can start reading Milton Friedman.
So Dan, how do you go from going Joe's route to getting into the radio? Like, how'd you know? Because this stuff isn't easy. Yeah, I mean, you've been doing it longer than I have or we have. How did you get started? How did it turn into this? Because hey, you got a hell of a following.
Well, yeah, it was something that's kind of funny. I mean, I fell into it. I never had any visions of being a broadcaster. I was a political hack. I was running campaigns and I had my own little public affairs firm. And I started doing some analyst work on WLS, particularly for Don Wade Roma's show in the morning, which had a 30-year run. Great show, great people. And I got the opportunity to talk to them, meet with them after a while. And I said, I'd love to do more on your show than just like the political analyst work. And they're like, okay, well, pitch us something. What do you have in mind? I said, well, maybe I could do like little, 1 minute, 90-second commentaries. And so that was in 2007. And I did that, and they liked it. And so they kept me around doing it once a week or so. And I did that for a couple of years. Then I ran for office. And then I lost. And then I came back to doing that, and among other things. And then the program director at WLS at the time wanted to use the weekends to build out a farm team for the weekdays. And so he was trying different combinations. And I had done a little bit of fill in work during the weeks, but mainly had me as like one of the people on the farm team on the weekends and trying different combinations. And he threw me together with Bruce Wolf. Of course, people know from, he has Chet Chit Chat and from all that time on Fox 32 as a sports guy. And he liked our chemistry. And so we got a show on Saturdays for a couple hours, and then that went well. So we got a show on Sundays for a couple hours as well. And then right before there was a change in ownership at WLS, sorry, long tortured story, but I'm almost done.
No.
Right before there was a change in ownership, before Cumulus bought WLS from Citadel, they wanted to blow out their midday guy because he wasn't working, and so they put us in middays, 9 to 11. And we did that for about 2 years. And then Don Wade got sick, unfortunately, brain cancer. And so we filled in for him. And then they announced that they were going to retire. And so we did the morning show on WLS for 2 years. And then after that, there's an opportunity for me to come over to AM 560 where I am now. And it would be my show, more my show than it was at LS, and sort of a blank canvas to paint on. So I took the opportunity, and I've been there for 9 years. So it sort of went from like little commentaries, and I just walked through one door, and it's sort of a life lesson. I just sort of enjoyed it, and I just walked through doors once they were opened, or I could push them open a little bit. And one thing led to the other. And so now I've been doing this for, 14 years.
I
Wow.
remember your very first media appearance, I think, was Beyond the Beltway,
Yeah, actually,
way, way back. I don't know if you even remember that. It was
yeah,
like a big thing. You emailed all your buddies, like, hey, I'm going to be on Beyond the Beltway with Bruce Dumont. And we all listened to it that night and stuff.
it's interesting you bring that up because, I mean, as much as I owe my career, for such as it is, to Don Wayne Roma, Bruce Dumont was huge as well for me. And he's just a great, legendary broadcaster. He's been doing it 50 plus years. And those roundtable discussions doing Beyond the Beltway was great sort of experience too, and sort of understanding the medium, thinking about what kind of show I would want to do if I could do a show, and those sorts of things. So yeah, it's like anything else in any other sector industry, is people really show you the way, even just by applying their own trade. And Don Wade and Roma and Bruce Dumont both did that for me.
Let's talk echo chambers, because I mean, I make fun, and the far left, far right, anybody that has a closed mind, that the way they respond to your argument is they just talk louder. You said 2007, so right around there, the iPhone came out and Facebook really got rolling, and a different form of advertising was coming out, because political advertising's been around a long time. And the difference between, 2007 and 1957 is there's more exposure to it. So you can say the Russians are influencing our future action. This has been going on for a long time, right? Right, Dan? How have you seen that happen, and people saying, "Oh, the election is rigged, it's fixed"? No, it's not. It's just there's more players in the game, and there's more ads. What are your thoughts on that? How advertising plays a role in this, especially we're getting into an election year?
Well, I mean, there are some things that have been unprecedented, like what happened during COVID, that we haven't seen in our lifetime, and we haven't seen, even if you compare it to the flu pandemic of the early 20th century, didn't have the impact of the election that it did. But in terms of advertising, it's just so much more diffuse. It's more fragmented. There are fewer gatekeepers, obviously, but there's always this desire for those in power to be a gatekeeper, to keep other people out. And so you've gone from the major networks to, say, the tech oligarchs. They're more important gatekeepers than ABC, NBC, and CBS are today. They're like what they were back in the 60s and 70s, and it started to lessen in the 80s. And then the advent of cable news, and then the advent of big tech and social media. So I think it's a good news, bad news thing. I mean, in a sense that they have the potential to control more, to control and stop the flow of information. But when you think about it, so did the old networks, in a way.
Yeah.
So I really don't think so much that it's that anything's changed, just in terms of the technological tools give opportunity to do more nefarious things more quietly, like we've seen with the Twitter files, for example, and the collusion between big government and big tech to censor people or to take them offline and so forth. But I think more of it is, but generally, I'm maybe a bit of an outlier with conservatives on this. I think it's been better, because it is more diffuse, because it is more fragmented, because more voices are heard, because you can do a podcast and have more viewership or readership than your local television station, or in some cases, national television stations for some of the big podcasters, for example. So I always think more voices, more ideas, let all 1,000 flowers bloom. And I think you could do that in the 21st century in a way that was much more difficult a generation or two ago.
Yeah, I mean, our show gets at least 1,000 hits, 1,000 viewers every week in a town of 16,000.
Right.
So, I mean, as a percentage of, I tell people who, oh, nobody watches that. I'm like, are you sure? I mean, I think people do. And what I've always liked about your show, Dan, is, and I try to listen, I drive a lot in the morning. And so I've got the radio on in the car. There's a lot of talk out there. I mean, you can find tons of places to hear opinions and stuff. But what I've always enjoyed about your show, even when I agree with you on most stuff, there's some things I'm more of a libertarian conservative, but I've always respected your opinion, and I think you have some substance behind it. You're not just saying Biden sucks. You're not just saying Democrats suck. You get into some meat on there and some thinking discussions, which is not typical for morning drive radio.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that, because that's what I'm trying to do. I think you have to make arguments to persuade people. I mean, you have to have, the morning drive slot. You have to do a few things. You have to be a little bit of a short order cook, because there's a little bit of a hit and run aspect to it. You have to leaven things. It can always be heavy. I'm much more heavy on policy than probably most morning shows. I'm sure that's true. But you have to leaven it too. You have to have fun. There's going to be some good-natured and sometimes some not good-natured name calling and ridicule. And I think ridicule is important. I really do. I think the devil hates ridicule. And so I think that you need to be able to make these substantive arguments, but also take the opportunity to have fun at somebody's expense who has richly earned that fun.
Well, we do that a lot on this show, so you're right at home.
It's a lot to be made fun of. Controversy sells. If you didn't have that stuff, then nobody would listen. And plus, you have callers calling in, and they kind of dictate. And I make fun of Dan from Elwood Park, calling in, but I mean, you have your screeners. I'm sure asking. Maybe it's you saying, "Hey, what are you going to ask?"
Yeah.
But they come on and they could dictate a tangent, right? How do you rein that stuff in? Because I'm sure you got some sort of a format before the show starts with you and your. Is Amy Jacobson still around?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How do you deal with that? With somebody calls in, and then who takes the question?
I mean, it's usually me, but I mean, if it's directed at her, she'll answer it, or if she has something to say on it, she'll jump in. The callers, I learned this long ago from actually the program director at WLS who hired me, Drew Hayes, which is with callers, it's poundage, not tonnage. This isn't Dr. Fraser Crane, I'm listening, and you just wait for people to call in. This is, take callers on topics, but you don't let them dominate or turn the conversation to a place you don't want to go. I mean, if they may take you to a tangent, you have a little fun with it, you address the tangent, but then you bring it back. So it's poundage, not tonnage. And we have some like very eccentric callers, let me say, but we have some very smart callers too. In fact, we just turned one of our regular callers, who's a high school history teacher, into a recurring weekly segment like I used to do for Don Wayne Roma, where I did political commentary. We're doing Frank from Arlington Heights' 1 minute in-depth history. And it's great because he's a font of historical knowledge. He teaches on a daily basis. He's a local teacher. So, I mean, I think that's the kind of stuff that you can do. It's like Mike North going from a hot dog stand to
Yeah.
being a broadcaster. I mean, it's me going from a political hack to being a radio host. So, I mean, I like the open-ended nature of it. It's not scripted. It's not planned out, other than in my head, I know what topics I want to get to, generally speaking, over the course of 4 hours. And then we just roll out the ball and we go with it.
Let's get a little deep and heavy here, Dan. I did a show with Morty Shapiro, who was the president of Northwestern at the time. And I asked him the question, because they have a book out that talks about how there's no civil discourse anymore. And, you have the far left and far right. And you'll love the questions I asked them. Are the colleges really indoctrinating the, students? Why am I paying $200,000 to turn my kid into a liberal? But the first question I asked was, is there anything that can happen that can unite the country? Like you had 9/11, you had Pearl Harbor. I mean, FDR couldn't get anything till Pearl Harbor happened. Do you think there is any event that could bring the country together? And I had the president of Northwestern and one of the esteemed professors from Northwestern on, and they could not give a scenario where they could think they could bring the country together on something. It's really hard to have a common goal now for everybody to gather around. I mean, Pearl Harbor, man on the moon, 9/11. We had just what happened in Afghanistan. That's not a big enough deal for the country to come together. What do you think it'll take for everybody to have a common goal? Because if you're in a foxhole or if it's 4th and 1, it's hard to find an atheist in that foxhole. What needs to happen in America for us to get our act together?
Let me start and and then Saul can answer that question. That's what we do as tenured faculty is
Yep.
we have quite tough questions and we say what we wanted to say anyway. But I want to get back to something, Stu, that you said right before we went live on this. And you said something like, well, far left and far right. I think I was the one who said they almost have a begrudging respect for each other, but what they hate is 90 degrees away. 180 degrees is one thing, but 90 degrees, they don't have any morality. They don't have any, I think that's what your point was, Stu, that they just, compromisers, right? They don't have the strength of their convictions. And that's what this book really is about. It's about how to learn from each other, treat each other with respect, and really engage in a productive way, not in a screaming way that everybody's screaming and no one's listening. So, that's now how we're going to get there. And actually, Saul and I are very different levels of optimism, mainly because Saul is an expert in Russian history, which suggests that the world is indeed coming to an end. But Saul, is there any event that could bring us together? What do you think?
Well, that's a really interesting question. It would have to be the sort of event where people felt that it was more important to work with each other than to use the crisis as a way to beat up on each other. That would be what it have to be. And you could tell, and we've had many of those in our history. Pearl Harbor obviously being one, but I find it. I don't think it's impossible, but I find it hard to imagine what it would be now. It wasn't a pandemic which would kill. I mean, pandemic kill Republicans and Democrats alike, right? This crisis, in Afghanistan. I mean, okay, so now you get everybody criticizing the president, but they most want to criticize each other, right?
Yeah.
And what would it be? I don't know. If there were if we had a major depression, well, you could play the blame game on that. What couldn't you? And there probably is something, and I'm hoping there's going to be, but I can't imagine it.
you're not going to tell me that there's nothing that the American do that can come together.
Well, I mean, well, first of all, I don't want another Pearl Harbor 9/11. I don't
Right.
take the country together.
Landing on the moon.
Yeah, but well, right, landing on the moon, yes, a major accomplishment, right? Yeah, something that unifies the country in accomplishment or against a foreign adversary. Certainly. Um, but part of that, though, I have to say, I mean, 330 million people, a lot of different interests, a lot of different viewpoints. I mean, I don't know what unite the country exactly means, because you're not going to get 100%. You're not going to get anywhere close to that agreement on just about anything. You're lucky you get barely 51% agreement on who should be the chief executive of the United States, right, in terms of presidency. So I'm not so concerned about uniting the country around something like a rally around the flag moment.
Yeah.
Conversation should be about a country that understands its founding principles. And this is the genius of the founders. That's that, we have these restraints on government because everybody is going to enjoy their pursuits and have their views. And that's great, because that's what a free society should feature. And where there's disagreement, well, that's part of living in the messiness of a free society. There's going to be disagreement. There's going to be fights, hopefully mostly intellectual and rhetorical, but sometimes more than that. And the framework for a free society provides the best response to dealing with 330 million different people and growing. And so that I think that unite around the founding principles of the country, and we'll go a lot farther. And maybe we can return to the halcyon days of Bill Buckley's firing line when we had these high-minded debates. But even if we don't have high-minded debates, as long as you respect those core principles, then we can at least live in a free society and appreciate the fact that we do.
But doesn't negative?
I think there's a country that, if you look, everyone in North Korea thinks alike. They're united. Do we want to be? I don't think we want to be North Korea, right?
It's the point of a gun, right? Yeah.
But negativity sells. I mean, people look for our brains are wired to protect ourselves. So we're going to look for the negativity. That's why all these advertisers do this crap with the headlines. And then people are lazy and they don't read the whole whatever it is. They just look at the headline. And then we run into this mess. And now you have people entrenched on the left and the right. Let's just say 5% each side, 10% each side. And then you have, the middle there that I'm hoping is open to hearing a constructive discussion, but it's creating the content in a form that they will consume that makes sense. And there's just so much, so many arrows coming from different directions that, the soccer moms, we got to sway them, Dan. How do we do that so we can get the right guy in office?
Well, yeah. I mean, just one point. I mean, there's a lot of people that love positive stories too. I mean, they like to be uplifted. They like to be inspired. And so this is why the heroic war movies are so popular. I mean, there's so many other examples too. So, I mean, it's so, people are complicated. It's a mixed bag. We consume negativity, but we also consume some things that are uplifting. And we have views of most people, because they don't think deeply about politics or political philosophy. They're awash in contradiction. They don't like, something when it happens over here, but they like it when it happens to them, or vice versa. I mean, look at what's happening with the migrant situation in Illinois right now. It's a sanctuary city. It's a sanctuary county in Cook. It's a sanctuary state. It seemed like a great idea to some, in theory. Now, when it's at their doorstep, it doesn't seem like such a great idea. This is people are not great at connecting dots, which goes back to what I said before about the value I try to add is to make arguments, at least to provoke thought and maybe to persuade ultimately.
Now, it would seem like a good idea with these migrants, but how do you do it? Do you just register everybody and, they got to do 2 years of work or something to come in? How do you fix it?
You have to start by, Confucius says, you're in a hole, stop digging. So we need to stop digging by securing the southern border and having some sort of sensible process for people to enter this country. And of course, there is a somewhat sensible process because there's a bunch of people trying to get into this country legally too.
Yeah.
So that, but I mean, you just can't open the floodgates. But these are the people. This is from the same people that want to open the jailhouse doors too. This is a classic example of what afflicts us. It's not we don't know what to do. It's a political will problem because of competing political interests, competing power interests. And so that's why you have things that don't look particularly commonsensical occurring because they make political sense to a certain group of people, and in this case, a certain political party. And and those suburban soccer moms that you mentioned, these sentimental barbarians, the Chardonnay Antifa in places like Hinsdale that I talk about. I mean, they're a scourge.
We got a few in Lake Forest too.
Yeah, you do. I mean, really, but they're a classic case of people who are gripped by sentimentality. They have no core. They feel their way through life. Everything is an emotional response, and it's just very hard when you've given into unreason. As Chesterton said, once you've given into unreason, unkindness follows quickly. And they think they're being high-minded, and they think they're being kind, and what they're actually being is particularly barbaric and particularly unkind, including to the people they think they're helping from afar. This is the Martha's Vineyard moment where it's, oh, the migrants are here. Oh, it's been so wonderful to have you for a day. Now get the hell out of our town and never come back.
It's only a matter of time before one of those buses pulls up to one of the Lake Forest
Yeah,
Methodist
Julie
stations.
Morrison's house. Oh, not in my house, not in my front yard. Oh, yeah, you like that homeless bill, Julie? Let me send a couple buses over there.
Yeah, I mean, your guy Reinhardt, Lake County State's attorney. You wait till somebody is released who shouldn't have been released, and that person harms a Lake County resident because it's going to happen under under the Pritzker.
I think it already has happened. We had a very horrific carjacking, not in Lake Forest, but just down the road in Libertyville a few months ago. A pregnant woman with her toddler.
Oh yeah,
in
right.
the car. And, this could have ended a lot worse than it did. I mean, she got hit trying to, she's trying to get her toddler out. She's pregnant. She gets hit by the car as they're fleeing. The toddler is then thrown out on a street in Waukegan, busy street. Thank God there was a bystander that saw it and grabbed this little kid and got him to safety. And the police ended up, but the people arrested for this had been arrested prior for smaller stuff. And we've talked about this quite a bit on this show. We've had obviously the police can't come on the show themselves, but we talked to them offline, and the police unions, they're very frustrated with Eric Reinhardt. I call him Kim Fox Jr. That this catch and release, he was one of only 2 state's attorneys out of 102 counties in Illinois to support the quote unquote Safety Act, which has been anything but safe. He's giving these get out of jail free cards to people, and it's some serious stuff that it's just a matter of time before we've had some serious crime in Lake Forest, like burglaries, and there unfortunately was a hit and run. But it's a matter of time before a carjacking, unfortunately, will happen in Lake Forest. And these guys aren't squeaky clean. There's stuff that leads up to it, right? These so-called minor crimes that would have put you in jail a few years ago. And now guys like Reinhardt and Kim Fox are letting him loose.
That's right. And I mean, and it's also too, the crime issue with respect to the lawlessness that follows being a sanctuary state. I mean, there was that Colombian burglary ring that was busted up in Lake County too. A bunch of people that did country illegally. They shouldn't be here, and they should be deported post haste. But we have a difficult time in this country because of politicians like Reinhardt and Pritzker and Brandon Johnson. We have a hard time deporting people who commit violent felonies who are in the country illegally. So, I mean, it's just that sort of senselessness that I think it runs afoul of people's good sense. But I think in Chicagoland, there's a sort of virulent strain of Stockholm syndrome that afflicts a majority of the population, such that they identify with El Reinhardt and Jelly Belly and BLM Brandon and the rest of this parade of horribles. I mean, it's just astounding. It's astounding what's happened to Lake County as well as to my home county of DuPage. But that's what happens when Chicago culturally annexes an entire region, which is what's happened.
Where did
Yeah,
this?
and it's not even really a partisan issue because the Will County State's Attorney, who I think you've had on your show, Jim Glasgow, he's a Democrat, and he's not playing around. He's against the Safety Act, and there've been a couple crimes where the criminals didn't realize they had gone too far south from Cook County into Will County, and they're looking at serious jail time because Glasgow is tough on crime.
Well, I mean, as you said, it was 100 of 102 county state's attorneys that
Right.
approved law, so that included 24 Democrats, and even the amended 2.0 version that ultimately is the law. Problem is, of course, that it's to some extent it's out of the state's attorney's hands now because of the law, and it's in the hands of judges when it comes to pretrial detention, which is a huge issue. I mean, there's been this great series in CWB Chicago covering Chicagoland crime over the last few years where they track the number of people who've been who committed a felony while awaiting trial on another felony. They were released either on their own recognizance or electronic monitoring. And, I think this year or 2023, there was something like 30 individuals who were awaiting trial on felony charges who killed or attempted to kill someone while awaiting trial on those other felony charges. And it results in something like 20 people dead and 40 people injured. And the numbers in previous years were even bigger. And it's just like that is such preventable crime. And it's a small percentage of people who commit a preponderance of the violent felonies. So remove those people from the streets and you're going to make things safer for the overwhelming majority that is otherwise generally law abiding. It's just not that complicated.
I hate pointing fingers without offering a solution, Dan. Where did this GW, a guilty white syndrome, come from that turned into this wokeness? My theory, and please poke holes in it, because I'm just trying to understand, and I'm if I can use this podcast in addition with what you're doing to help, get us on the right direction. The people that I've met, if they started up a business from scratch, they tend to be more Republican. But the kids of the people that started that business, they kind of took it over and, maybe they improved it, made it even better, or just kept it going and they didn't earn the money. Their parents earned the money. So they have the luxury of, handing out money and feeling guilty because they didn't earn it. Am I looking at it the right way? Where'd this wokeness come from?
Yeah, I think right. I think luxury is a good word. Very fashionable views. They're very fashionable until they run into reality. So in so many of the times, look, I mean, this has been incubating on college campuses for a long time. So it comes from elite circles. I mean, the scholarship and quotation marks behind critical theory dates back 40 years. And this is just using identity as the way that Marx used class to divide, to try to stoke the proletariat revolution and create heaven on earth. So it's race, and now it's the Baskin-Robbins 32 flavors of gender that is a substitute for what Marx and Engels wrote about in the 19th century. So I mean, so that's where it came from. It came from philosophical and academic circles. It pervades the academy because they've long been of a monolithic mindset. I mean, speaking of Marty Shapiro and Northwestern, I mean, I went to Northwestern, and back when I was there 30 years ago, it was a hotbed of Marxism, and that's only it's morphed a little bit, like I'm talking about, along identity politics lines, but it's not changed in any material way. It's gotten less tolerant because the administration is a lot weaker. Arnie Weber, who was president when I was there, was a lot more committed the free marketplace of ideas on a college campus than the presidents who succeeded him. And certainly the shill, the current one, is laughable. He's an embarrassment. So, and so it radiates out from the campus. What happens on campus doesn't stay on campus, because you have a lot of these people in elite circles, and then they go to elite institutions that get elite jobs across sector in corporate America, in big law firms, in medicine, and so on and so forth. So, it spreads like cancer, which it has. This is why Andrew Sullivan's piece from a couple of years ago, so we all live on a college campus now, was really on point, because that's what happened. It was like the oil spot technique. You start from a position of strength, the left did, on a college campus in academic circles, and then you radiate out to the larger culture, and that's what's happened.
Hasn't that happened? I mean, you go back Vietnam War, when I was growing up and Ronald Reagan was president, most of my teachers had gone to college during the Vietnam War and were, anti-war protesters, and a couple of them had impeach Reagan buttons on their coats and all that crap.
Now
But
those are pro-war protesters. Some of those same people.
Yeah.
Theater, yeah.
But it's like, it seems like every time it starts to go one direction, if you use the pendulum theory, the pendulum starts to swing. And what's that old phrase? What's the definition of a conservative? Is a liberal who's been mugged.
My reality. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I don't know. I'm hoping. I mean, we've had Mary Cole, bringing it back here to Lake Forest and Lake County. We've had Mary Cole on the podcast, who is a former assistant state's attorney under Mike Neerheim, who only lost to Eric Reinhardt by like 2 or 3 points in 2020. And a lot of people think if the presidential election hadn't been on the ballot the same day, that Reinhardt would have lost. But Mary Cole is out there, and all these crimes we talked about in Lake County. There's, in addition, you mentioned CWB Chicago. There's a similar publication called Lake McHenry Lake McHenry County Scanner, which details all the crimes in Lake and McHenry County. And it's just it's scary to see some of the stuff happening. And I have to think there's a lot of people, and I know Lake Forest is not a microcosm of life or of Lake County even, but the Lake Forest mayoral election. And you talked about it on your show a little bit, and I know you followed it from afar. But the issue of Kim Foxx and the donations by Prue Beidler to Kim Foxx, which came out in the Lake County Gazette, broke a lot of that stuff. And then I'm the one that sat and totaled up all the donations that she'd given to Democrats in general, which was over $1 million. But the whole thing with Kim Foxx, and to a certain degree Eric Reinhardt, really touched a nerve with a lot of people who don't identify as Republicans, but are just, I think, sensible thinkers, and say, hey, I want the police to be able to do their job. And like I said earlier, the cops are ticked off about this whole, they can't do their job anymore. I mean, the Lake Forest police do a great job here. Of doing stuff, of getting these criminals apprehended, and then they feel Reinhardt's undoing their work. Is there some hope, though? My question is there some hope of people waking up and saying enough's enough to the Eric Reinhardts of the world, and that whole mentality?
Well, I guess if you can convince some of those active wear, donning, Starbucks swilling, Lake Forest, Lake Bluff dilettantes, that the response to not liking Trump is not to make your community less safe. I hate Trump so much, I'm going to endanger my family's safety. How does that make sense? And I think it needs to be put to people in stark terms. I mean, look, the quality of the campaigns that are run matter, Joe, you know this. And the Republican Party is virtually non-existent. It's been a legal fiction for a long time. It's a terrible brand. It has no brand equity. In fact, it has negative equity. That's why people who are otherwise commonsensical say, like, yeah, I'm not on board with Reinhardt or Pritzker, but I'm I don't call myself a Republican. Well, who would want to? What does the Republican Party stand for? I have no idea. And I follow this stuff pretty closely, have for a long time,
Yeah.
and don't know either. And they're not even attempting to answer that question. It's pathetic. So it's really going to be an individual, at this point, community or region by region exercise in terms of trying to depose some of these terrible public officials like Reinhardt. And so is there hope? I think so. I think the arguments to make are manifest. And I think now you've got some real world, unfortunately, bad examples to highlight the impact of the terrible public policy that people predicted would occur. It has occurred, and it's going to continue to occur. And all I see from Reinhardt is press releases about Trump's rhetoric on the campaign trail, which I have no idea what that has to do with his job as Lake County State's attorney. But I do know what he's doing, which is exactly what I said. Don't look at me, just join me in hating Trump. And if people can't be on offense in piercing the silliness of that line of rhetorical argument, then they deserve to lose. So that would be my advice to Mary Cole.
To fix the situation, Dan, because I hate pointing fingers, getting back to the indoctrination and the way colleges are going now with the costs going up, I don't understand it. I understand that back in the day, knowledge was centralized. Now with the internet, it's decentralized. And who cares how you get the knowledge? You just need to prove that you have the knowledge. Why go through 4 years of that crap to get indoctrinated, pay the money? Look, if a doctor has to take a test to prove he can be a doctor, if a lawyer has to do it, an accountant has to do it, why can't there be something, just a proctor sitting there? Here's whatever the test is. If you can take a test for a GED, prove you have a high school education, why can't you do it for a college education? You can get a head start on things, not start out life in debt. Because when you're poor, when you don't have money, you're a Democrat. When you do finally have money, you become Republican. At least that's what I've experienced in my life. Do you really need 4 years of this stuff? Can you take a test and, proficiency out of college?
Well, I mean, just on the whole, maybe in a bygone era, it used to be if you had money, you're Republican. If you're poor, you're Democrat. But that's done almost a 180. I mean, look at all the rich enclaves around Chicagoland. Are they Republican bastions of conservatism? Hardly. So yeah, I mean, that this is the fashionable Chardonnay Antifa views of
Yeah.
the left and their financiers. And who are their financiers? Rich trial lawyers, public sector union bosses, rich financiers at big banks, and so just a point of order
and Prue Beidler.
Well, yeah, okay.
Who inherited? She's the mini JB Pritzker. She basically inherited, or her husband inherited the money.
But I mean, Pete, in terms of what you're saying about college, I mean, I completely agree. I tell that right now where I went to school, I tell people it is not worth spending 350 grand to send your kid to Northwestern. It's not worth it. There's no ROI. Liberty University, there you go, the plug. So yeah, apprenticing.
Yeah.
Only 1 in 3 kids go to college in the first place. So, we have to kind of conceive of a world that respects people that don't go to college. They go into the trades, or
stigmatism.
They go work for the family business, whatever. I mean, that we made a mistake 75 years ago when we said the goal is for everybody to get a 4-year degree. The good news is, and this is sort of a positive coming even out of Silicon Valley, is you're starting to see more and more big companies relax their BA, BS requirement to even as a threshold you have to clear to even be considered for a job. And I think that's encouraging. And frankly, with the performance of the Ivy League presidents in recent weeks and valuing they've done to their institutions, which I applaud them. I thank them for devaluing their institutions because they should have been so maybe some of the luster is off of the status schools, the need for a college education. I think more and more people are having that conversation. In addition, you mentioned something too about technology. Khan Academy and these other online portals that have great academic offerings. Right. I mean, I agree with you. I think through independent study, if there was a little guidance, you could get as good an education at online through Khan Academy and the Woodson Center and other outlets as you could at a Big Ten school. I think it's changing, but there's a lot of inertia in the direction of how it's always been. So it's going to take time. But I think you're starting to see some green shoots in terms of changing the landscape for post-secondary education and the need for it in terms of attaining a job.
But even K-12 is getting crazy. And, this is an area I think you and I are very much in lockstep on is school choice. I've talked about on this show, and the Gazette actually made an article out of it, that it was really a shame how the Illinois legislature, including our esteemed representatives Julie Morrison and Bob Morgan, basically backstabbed the school choice program. I can't remember the name of Invest in Kids Act. And we're here in Florida, and we had a guest a few weeks ago who actually moved from Lake Forest to Florida. He said, I love Lake Forest, but I just can't take Illinois anymore. And he had kids in school, and Florida has a full school choice program. I think it started under Jeb Bush when he was governor. I mean, let's talk a little bit about school choice, because we've had a lot of talk on our show about even the Lake Forest school system, which is by comparison a pretty good school system than most. But even that, I think, we find waste there, and we find a couple of crazy teachers there and stuff like that. What would school choice would really, I think, is the civil rights issue of our time, my opinion.
At the Lake Forest schools, you also find about a third of the students are not reading and doing math at grade level, which I know would probably shock most Lake Forest residents, but it's a fact. And it's a fact everywhere in Illinois, including these Tony suburban enclaves with their schools that everybody sort of rallies around because it's like part of the identity. New Trier, Lake Forest, Barrington, Hinsdale Central. Let me tell you something. Those are not good high schools, not by the standards of a bygone era, maybe in comparison to even worse schools in Chicago and in some of the less wealthy suburbs, but they're not good schools in absolute terms. The quality of education in Illinois across the board is continuing to devolve. You have kids across the board, the percentage of the kids, growing percentage of the kids that are not reading, that are not doing math. You're not turning them out to be critical thinkers across the board. It's more pronounced in some places than others, but I'm sure if you ask the average Lake Forest resident, Lake Forest High School, what do you think, like, the proficiency levels are? Oh, it's 100%. It's 95, 99%. All our kids go to college and so on and so forth. Not even close. Not even close. School choice, but of course, nobody has a problem with somebody who sends their kid to Lake Forest Academy, but they have a problem if somebody sends somebody on the South Side sends their kid to a Catholic school. I mean, again, run the logic of that for me. And a lot of it is these awfuls, angry white leftist females in the suburbs. That they are a problem because they are completely aligned with the teachers' unions, which are completely opposed to any competition at K through 12 level. So what would school choice look like? We have school choice right now. It's called college. And I can take my GI Bill, I can take my Stafford loan money, I can take that and go anywhere I want to go. I can take it to Catholic University, I can take it to Yeshiva, I can take it to Notre Dame, I can take it to U of I, and I can take it to Liberty University, and compete, and schools compete for kids. And everybody, our colleges are the best. And so if you believe that system works at the collegiate level, then why wouldn't it work at the K through 12 level? Oh, well, it's going to be difficult for people to who are not like in the local school district to commute their kids to the. Hey, let them figure that out. Give them the resources, let them make the choices, and let them figure that out. Don't dictate to other people what your life can or can't be, or what your kid's life can and can't be. It's so arrogant. And the arrogance all comes from these wealthy enclaves who align with these rabid, frothing at the mouth Marxists in the city, like BLM Brandon, like Stacey Davis Gates. It is the strangest alliance.
And where does Stacey Davis Gates send her kids to school?
A private Catholic school.
Of course. She's the president of the teachers union, sends their kids to a private school. Come on.
But hold on, guys. When we've had administrators come on the show, we say Lake Forest High School, our taxes are going up $1,000 a year because this referendum passed by 100 votes. And there's only 1,400 kids at the school. And I ask, well, what is maximum capacity of the school? I can't get a straight answer on that. Well, I'll tell you what, it's like a small business restaurant, okay? You don't have a 30-page menu. You adjust the menu to have the core offerings versus having all this administration come on. But when I make the suggestion, well, why don't we bring in some kids from North Chicago and let's get max capacity at Lake Forest High School? Oh no, we can't do that.
Well, that's look. I mean, here's the dirty little secret. A lot of opponents of school choice are racists. I mean, that's. I mean, it's just a fact. They don't want their kids going to school with black and brown kids. I mean, let's just say it. That's what it is. I moved here because, and
Right.
the sort of like they sort of dance around the topic, but that's what they're saying. And so. This is why the genius of schools like the Field School in Chicago, like Chicago Hope Academy, where you've got really integrated, scholarship-based, to some extent, uh, competition at the K through 12 level, that it is going to continue to exist, even though the scholarship program has been rescinded by the Democrats. But people should know about these schools and the models because they are replicable, they are scalable, and it's the right way to do K through 12 education. I mean, the bottom line is that you have to infuse competition into K through 12. We believe, generally speaking, and all those wealthy people in Lake Forest believe, generally speaking, that competition produces better goods and services at lower costs. So why should K through 12 be exempt? It's certainly not a performance-based exemption. So, you have to make the argument and force people out of the bushes and into the clear and have to, make their arguments too and explain their position because their position is indefensible.
You give the kids grades. Why don't you give the teachers grades? Where's the differentiation on that? Right? Just because you've been there longer, that makes you better.
The teachers do get grades, but I mean, if you look like wirepoints.org has all the report cards, the State Board of Education report cards in every school district. I encourage people to check it out, including Lake Forest, to verify what I said about Lake Forest High School. And the teachers' grades, they're all like 99% because the teachers grade teachers. So you have schools where 1 in 5 kids can read at grade level, but the teacher's rating is 99% effective. I mean, it's laughable. The whole thing is a fraud. It is a fraud, and it is a remarkably expensive fraud. And I'm not even just talking about the $24,000 per pupil we spent at the state level, $30,000 in Chicago. I'm talking about how many children are deprived of the opportunity to compete in the real world because they're not even given a chance to get a quality education or earn a quality education. I mean, again, 1.85 million kids in K through 12 in Illinois, only a third read at grade level and only a fourth do math at grade level. So work the consequences of those numbers. Those are numbers that those awfuls don't want to confront. They just want to bury their head. They just want to walk blindly past it, say, as long as my kid is doing fine and whatever, and I'm towing the popular lines, then I'm just going to ignore the destruction that is being wrought on a daily basis.
And I also think that school choice is something that it would not only benefit lower income kids. I think middle class families, a lot of people they can't afford to write a property tax check for thousands of dollars to the school district and a check for tuition to a private school because they would like, and as a former school board member, I felt they would be doing us the less enrollment we had at the public school, the better. It would be doing us a favor, be doing the school districts a favor to reduce the number of kids in the system, give them a voucher.
You know what you get in response to that argument? Oh, Joe, you're cream skimming. And my response to that, you're taking the best students. And my response to that is, I'm sorry, is the point here to put the kid in the best school for that kid, or is it to protect the system and to protect your sort of the facade of the system? The point here is for kids to have the opportunity to go to the schools that fit them best, that will best allow them to flourish. It is not to protect your job as an administrator or the system writ large. This is the whole like poisonous mentality, the way we think about this. Oh, this school is going to suffer. This is about the individual kids being in the best learning environment for the individual kids and parents having choices. Of course, we talk about this in Illinois. We're like the North Korea of this country. We're like so isolated from the rest of the world. We think like nothing else is going on. There are 26 states that have school choice programs. Right next door in Indiana, they have school choice programs that go to incomes, I think, approaching 70 grand. You mentioned Florida, largest school choice program in the country. And there's no state income tax in Florida, and they have lower sales tax in Illinois, and yet they've got schools and kids are getting educated, and they're able to raise $750 million for scholarships in Florida. And you should, and all you have to do is ask the parents and look at the parents' grading of the schools that they are allowed to send their kids to in places like Indiana and Florida versus what they were previously doing at the neighborhood school. I mean, this is like the information is out there. The case is unbelievably strong. You just have to stop averting your eyes. But in Illinois, it's tough to get people to fixate.
Should our tax dollars be spent on communications departments putting out propaganda? What motive do they have to put out bad information about their schools?
Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
Like, why should I be paying for Melissa Oakley's the communication director for the schools here in Lake Forest? She's my bud. Why am I paying for her to put out information that can only benefit her and the schools? It doesn't seem right, because as Joe says, there's a whole bunch of school districts in Illinois. If you have a whole bunch of communication departments that our tax dollars are paying for, we're paying to get this misinformation put out there. Am I looking at it the right way, Dan?
I mean, I think that's a fair criticism. I mean, I'm not opposed to having a comms person be an interface with the public and with stakeholders and things like that to let people know what's going on in the schools. So yeah, but I mean, I take your point that you've got like all these redundancies, like you have 42 assistant superintendents of every aspect of the daily school life and stuff. So it's to me, it's a little bit more the form than the function. I gotta say, like I try to avoid getting into the discussion about like how much we spend on K through 12 education, because it just isn't persuasive. I mean, most people are just like blank check, whatever it takes, because they don't understand that you're not moving the flag, even though you're spending more money. So, here's my thing. Tell me what the number is. You tell me what it's going to cost. I could never get this answer out of Karen Lewis when she was head of Chicago Teachers Union. Tell me what it costs to get everybody to where I went to high school, Bennett Academy level performance on the SAT, ACT, graduation rates, college acceptance, so forth. Whatever the number is, I will pay it. And I will promote getting to that number. Okay. I'll work with you to figure out how we get to that number for CPS. There's no number. There's never a number. So it's always more. It's just more, because if you don't spend more, then you're an opponent of kids learning or you hate teachers. If you want to talk, as you started the show about, but silly arguments, those are silly arguments. Those are unworthy of adults, but that's what you get.
We're actually spending more per education now than any time in the country's history, if you look at adjusting it with CPI and stuff.
It's gone up something like 240% adjusted for inflation in the last 2 decades. And what do we get for it? Better schools, more educated kids coming out? No. The data says the opposite. and especially when you look internationally. I mean, we're something like 12th in reading and 17th in science. I mean, we're behind developing nations when it comes to some of these core disciplines that are supposed to be developed in K through 12.
We're getting towards the end of the show, Dan, and I want to send some traffic, your way. But before I do that, where did the Lake County Gazette come from? Because it shows up in my mailbox. I open it up and I see our two ugly mugs in there.
Can we get better pictures?
Only
Can
so
you
much.
talk to somebody?
But where did that come from? Oh, that's Dan Proft. I'm like, okay, what is that? Where did it come from? What are we trying to do there?
It's not mine per se, but I am affiliated with the
Okay,
publisher of those.
okay, okay.
And
Okay.
the vision is to do local news because local newspapers went away. And one of the reasons that the dailies have so diminished themselves, like the Sun-Times and the Tribune, is because they stopped doing local news. The Tribune would have like 4-part series on what's happening in sub-Saharan Africa, but they don't know what's going on in Schaumburg. And people want news about where they live. And so we figured out a way to do local news at a a cost point that was
Yeah,
feasible. And so that's what we're doing. And a lot of it is proper nouns and photos because people can't help but reading about themselves and others in their community.
that's my
Um,
kid.
yeah, but a lot of it too is trying to do like the substantive what's going on in the community that where there's a void right now. And so that was the genesis of the local news. And we there's local newspapers not just here, but in other states too. And we're trying to sort of build out this model.
Who is the publisher? Because seriously, I want to clear this thing up. I represent the general population, so because the format of the show is three guys sitting in the beer having 2 3 beers, talking about what's going on. Hey, did you see what we got in the mailbox there? You open it up. Who is the publisher? Who do we give credit to, and how many other papers do they have?
Brian Timponi is
Okay.
the main person, and that's not news. That's not breaking news. It's just like I know there's all these
Right,
rumors, and because of my political involvement, these
right,
black
right.
conspiracy theories. But he is, and we've always been transparent about it, and we've always challenged people. It's green, it's slime, it's right-wing propaganda. So just tell us one thing that's wrong. Tell us something that we got wrong. Tell us something that's
Yeah, I
fact.
mean, Prue Beidler, you guys played, I mean, not you guys, the Lake County Gazette played a big role in the Lake Forest mayoral election. I don't think a lot of people knew about Prue Beidler spent $200,000 to try and be elected mayor of a town of 16,000 for a job that pays $10 a year. And, uh, people didn't know this. My kid couldn't turn on a YouTube video without seeing a Prue Beidler ad and all this stuff. And I really thought she was going to buy her way into the mayor's office, but the Gazette broke some good stories, some true stories that she could not refute, about her donations to Kim Fox, that her daughter-in-law worked for Kim Fox, all sorts of things that and she had every chance in the world to come and address it. And all she could say is, don't listen to that newspaper. It's controlled by right wingers and all that. But she never could answer the substance of the issue.
When the facts aren't with you, attack the messenger. And we get that a lot. Yeah, we see that a lot. Yeah.
So does this podcast. Dan, you've all right, thank you for coming on because I had a certain view, and my view was a couple times watching your show. So it's more than just, hey, this is Bobby from Lombard. Biden sucks. Okay. That's turned me around. Um, how do I catch your show? How do we call in? Like how this is
I'll,
Pete from Lake Forest.
I'll do fewer shameless plugs than Weiss did for Liberty University. I'll
Yeah,
just
it's Bulker.
uh, it's 560theanswer.com. It's the website, you listen there. It's on all the podcasts are on all the podcast platforms, Spotify and Apple and
Link
so
will be right here.
And you can call in 312-642-5600. Glad I remembered that. That's the call-in number. Anybody and everybody's welcome to call in and pitch your wares. And then I also do a podcast in conjunction with American Greatness, amgreatness.com, called Counterculture, which you can also find YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple. Counterculture with Dan Proft is the name of the podcast.
Dan Proft, thank you so much for coming on the Lake Forest.
Thanks, Dan. I'll see you. Dan and I are going to get together later this week out down here in Lake Forest South, aka Naples.
Hey, Dan, is walking across the street in Naples, isn't it like Frogger?
41 it is, yeah.
Fifth Avenue can be a little dangerous.
To all my buddies in Naples, thanks.
Oh, you got a lot of 80-year-olds driving around in Lamborghinis, so you gotta watch out.
Well, and the construction workers in their F-150s blowing by to go to their 5 jobs they're doing at once. The Lake Forest Podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Broker Michelle Parno has lived and worked in Lake Forest for over 2 decades. Michelle's lending experience, when combined with her real estate expertise, makes her an invaluable asset to her clients as they navigate their home buying or selling process. Call Michelle now at 847-528-8721, 847-528-8721. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. AV Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. Laracy & Company CPAs, founded in 2010 by Lake Forest's own Brian Laracy, specializes in tax preparation and bookkeeping services. Earning the People Love Us on Yelp award, their process is straightforward. Just upload, review, and file. For a free quote, visit laracycpa.com now. That's LARISEYCPA.com. I'm excited to share with you something special from our Lake Forest community, the Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa, located at 775 North Bank Lane in Lake Forest near Wisconsin Avenue. This just isn't any spa. They offer an amazing blend of traditional spa services, plus the added benefit of medical procedures and treatments. In a relaxing and luxurious spa environment, you can enjoy a range of cosmetic and aesthetic treatments. These are all performed under the supervision of top medical professionals. The Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa provides skin care, facial rejuvenation, body contouring, laser hair removal, Botox, dermal fillers, chemical peels, and much more. What's great is that each treatment is tailored not just to enhance your appearance, but also to address specific skin concerns and to promote overall well-being. So if you're looking to pamper yourself and take your beauty routine to the next level, give the Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa a call at 224-768-8028 or visit them at their location on North Bank Lane. It's an experience your skin will thank you for. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters, Otto, John C., Helen, and Herrick.